And no, I'm not dancing on stage. All right, thanks everyone. As mentioned, my name's Joe, and I'm going to talk a little bit about smart ways to die. I was told by the organisers it was the most interesting topic of the conference. And the reason that I chose this topic is we've spent a lot of time thinking about dangerous scenarios in virtual reality. I'm lucky enough to work for one of the largest vocational training institutes in the Southern Hemisphere. But I'm also going to talk about some of the philosophies around the design and the experiences that I've had over the last sort of 10 years working in this space. This is just a quick video of some of the ways we've harmed people.
Oh no, you've been electrocuted.
Oh no, the wheels.
All right, you can see fade to black is very effective. So just a quick on my background and why I know what I'm talking about. So I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in the animation industry for over 20 years, working in XR since 2013. I currently lead a development team. We've been together for over 4.5 years. We've developed over 20 XR applications, and we're lucky enough to be an immersive learning partner. One question I get all the time is how do we pick the scenarios that we pick? There's a really clear process that really helps us be able to effectively deliver the applications we've done so far and make sure that they're meaningful. So the first one's define process. So ensuring that we have good subject matter experts, they're able to clearly articulate the processes that they're trying to replicate, that they take advantages of the virtual reality affordances and ensure that they've got that physicality element, particularly with the process-based training stuff that we do. They need to be impactful, so they need to actually change behaviour, change way people are working, add value to a business, add value to a training organisation. And then the last thing is measurable results. So we ensure that we have analytics, but we also do research with research partners as well as internal research. So it's really important that we are able to measure results of the work we do and ensure that we're improving every single time we're building new applications. The next thing that I want to talk about is the kinesthetic design that we actually develop. So no laser pointers is my mantra. My team kind of hates it sometimes, so it's no laser pointers mostly. So there's definitely reasons and rationale to use laser pointers. But you can see here, this is our smartwatch mechanic that we've developed, and that's across most of the applications that we've rolled out. Now in the past, it's able to be torn off, as you can see here, and placed in the world if you need to have reference of information, but we're able to then snap that back to the wrist so it's always available for people. We're working on right-left versions of those as well, but it just gives clear indications of what steps are required in a particular thing, and that tactile feeling of touching means you're confirming steps throughout the process as well to ensure that you're going on to that next task or that next step in the process. The other part also is diegetic menu systems. So a lot of people say, oh yeah, laser pointers are great for lots of menus. It's great for, say, the Oculus store to browse apps and things like that. But we also like to have these diegetic menus which are built into a world. So this is a medical device environment with quite a lot of chapters you can see there, but it allows them to select that material straight away, and it throws them straight into the chapter that they've selected. So really important with that as well. We also have that selection mechanic where they can make a mistake and be able to change that so it's not snapping straight to the new level or the new stage of a particular application. Another really interesting thing we've found is trying to replicate really hyper-accurate processes in regards to physical tasks. So this is mixing a blood sample, and it needs to be done in a particular way for the sample to actually be able to be processed in the analysis machine that this is going into. So we had to really think about the physics behind how people mix a syringe. So we've actually got hyper-accurate measurements on those kinesthetic elements, which has been challenging, but worth the process of building that. And then the other thing we really found is doll houses are really effective. So this application, in the earlier part of this chapter, someone's looking at the full-size scaffold, and we could have easily put a laser pointer and got them to identify the elements that were missing. But what we realised is if we took them into dollhouse mode, they were able to more effectively understand the missing elements on that scaffold and be able to place that in the correct space and understand that spatial environment a bit better. And we've used dollhouses in quite a lot of areas, and we've found them very effective. And then the other one is touchscreens, which has been a really interesting space. That's a very detailed machine, obviously got very small touch targets to touch things, but this device that we're simulating at the moment is a very sophisticated device and requires specific well-defined processes to ensure that it's done correctly. And we wanted to make sure we're replicating it as accurately as possible. But we're planning on with the client to actually have this be a medically certified training solution, so they don't actually have to interact with a physical device to be certified, a certified nurse on this device. So really exciting, but it's definitely challenging. But that's where ensuring that you aren't cheating the system by using artificial UIs to do that. You're actually getting to physically touch that. We're also going to start investigating the hand tracking 2.0 with the Quest 2 to maybe move away, because this is all controller-based input at the moment, so moving to hand tracking is part of that as well. Now, slow-mo and messing with time. You saw in some of the earlier videos that we had the fade to blue. We wanted to ensure people understand a particular scenario and have a chance when they're still going through the process before they're going into an assessment environment to be able to make a quick choice and understand what they need to do without being punished straight away. So you can see here it goes to blue, it slows down. The learner's able to say, oh, I know what I need to do, I can grab that, and I've got enough time to actually make that decision. We can turn that slow-mo effect off if we want to do an assessment, make it real time if required, but we've found it to be really quite good for people to understand that. And you can see here, it's able to allow a student to say, okay, that's actually a wrong decision. You know, I didn't listen to the instruction, or we actually, in this particular scene, we actually, the other worker says, get me the small ladder, and actually that's the incorrect choice. So by default, they were tricked into doing that, and then realised that's actually not going to be safe. So they're able to make the choice quickly with the slow-mo effect to make the correct choice. And you can see here, we actually have a distraction technique where they're actually having a task where they have to do something else, and then we slow the time, and that gives them a bit of a trigger to then be able to save the person there. So but it's really interesting, and we're starting to explore other ways we can use slow motion. So conversational scenarios is sort of the next area that we started to investigate. The reason being is a lot of the processes didn't have a narrative on why they were doing things. So students would just do things, and we said, well, why did you do that? It's like, well, because you told me to, as opposed to understanding the process in context of a workplace or context of a particular industry. So the evolution that we're starting to explore is being able to have a manager or a foreman or someone in authority, they actually have to say, I actually have to say no to this person in authority and say I don't feel that that's safe, or I don't think that process is correct, or be able to talk to someone about a difficult conversation where they might have had a confrontation in a particular scenario. Things like that are really an evolution of the process-driven virtual reality, because you're giving that deeper depth and marrying both the human-centered skills and the hard skills as well, which is really important. And I'll show a quick video about a scenario. So this is in the Tailspin platform. This took me probably about 15 minutes to develop. It's actually quite quick. It's a no-code solution to be able to build conversational AI, and it's something that we're looking to explore where I've got non-technical authors that are able to build content, and that's where I also see the opportunity to scale. But I'll play that now. I've got sound on this. don't have sound. I'll go back. Can we get sound on that? We're good.
I need you to grab the oxy welder and finish that job. Peter has gone home sick.
I have no training for that type of welder. It would be unsafe for me to use it.
I need the work done today. Work out how to get it done, or find yourself a new job.
So you can see that's quite confronting. And, you know, if you're a first-year apprentice or a student or someone who's not as confident having a confrontational environment like that, it's something that you're not used to being able to practice. And you don't want to get fired. So you just say, yeah, sure, I'll go and try an oxy welder and burn my eyes out. So they're the scenarios we want people to be able to be confident enough to be able to practice and say, yeah, I feel like I can actually take on that scenario. And that gives you that context to the dangerous scenario as well. So some of the things we want to think about with conversational scenarios is ensuring that they're consistent, that they're repeatable. So having a small scenario like that is okay, but you want to be able to go back and look at branching alternatives and understand things. Also have the ability to say, if I'm doing one particular conversation, what is the next challenging environment that I want to move into? So having that flow through that as well. Detailed analytics are really important. Having role plays in training is always, you know, challenging for most people. If you're doing peer-to-peer role plays, people don't take it seriously or they find it awkward, as opposed to you know, having actors, it's costly and you're still not getting those analytics. You're getting subjective input from the actor or the performer who's doing that, as opposed to having detailed analytics with a natural language understanding platform that can actually gather that information, give that feedback, and then also maybe allow the user to understand if they're ready to go into the procedural-based environment or they need to go back and have a conversation. So that's a really important thing for me. Lastly is the learning journey. So ensuring that, as I said, that these things are contextually relevant across the entirety of everything. So that's, for mine, something where we really want to make sure, instead of just doing things that it's out of context, I'm just doing the process because I'm told to, you realise you're part of a job, this is what I'm doing every day, this is my foreman, this is my boss, and I need to do what I'm being told, or I need to challenge that if I think it's not something that I think is effective. So just looking at final thoughts, I mean, the big thing for me, like I've spent a lot of time building these things, and it's been really interesting to see the absolute explosion in really interesting content, really interesting stuff. But I think a lot of the developers that have come maybe from different mediums have taken their 2D paradigms into the spatial environment. So they're still relying on pop-ups, they're relying on multiple choice or laser pointers, as I said. And I think for mine, it's really important to understand that the physicality of virtual reality is the strength. It's the reason that we're getting people to jump into these headsets for training in particular, because you want to try and replicate the real world as most accurately as possible, especially in dangerous scenarios, especially in expensive scenarios. The opportunity to be able to have that conversational element is, you know, it's relatively new now. Like the avatars are getting smarter, the AIs are getting smarter. So being able to bring those in is things that we haven't had in the last couple of years either. So those are becoming easier to be able to develop, but it allows that human element. The physical power of virtual reality is really important. I mean, most people have probably done Richie's plank or something similar where they've had their palms sweat, the galvanic responses. We've played around with olfactory sensors as well, all kinds of different elements. But the physicality of just doing a task and having that muscle memory of understanding how to do things. I mean, our plumbing application, I can tell you exactly how to pull apart a copper pipe and do everything in the correct way, and it's ingrained into my memory. It'll be something I'll never forget. But I also asked senior managers that have done the application once or twice, and they can actually recall that stuff as well. So that's really important that muscle memory is retained. No-code platforms will expand available content, and I think that's going to be a really important thing. Like the experts in the room here, we won't be the ones to build the most of our content. The hope is that we've got non-technical authors able to deliver this content and build this out on scale. It's the only way we're going to get and reach everybody to be able to embrace this technology. I think the other part is that hand, eye tracking and body tracking is going to drive kinesthetic design. So if you're still relying on, quick wins on easy UI that you've taken from a previous medium, it's going to start to become a bit awkward when you're using haptic gloves or you're using other elements that are actually going to require more body tracking and more body elements. And I think that's also going to bring out more opportunities. Things like eye tracking are really interesting, from paying attention to things on dangerous environments, or doing things specifically, or even having that conversational piece where you're actually paying attention in an interview while you're doing things that are really valuable. And I think that's something that is really exciting with the new devices that are getting announced in the next couple of years. And I think that for mine is something that I'm really looking forward to leading in. And I'm happy to, if anyone wants more information on the work we're doing, that'd be great. I do have a freebie. So we just launched our app on the App Lab. It's free for any training institutes to use, free for anyone to use. Give me a review. I'm happy to reach out if you guys have any questions about it. We'd love the feedback. The guys have done a great job. This is one of 5 applications we're developing in partnership with Meta. So they'll be coming out in the next, between now and August. And they're across different areas, so childcare, PPE, we've got canine anatomy, and explosive power tools. So those apps will be available for everyone to use, which is really exciting. Any questions?
If you just want to raise your hand, I'll run over with a mic.
So you mentioned quite a bit about scaling.
Yes.
Especially from my perspective in development of XR applications for training, it's always been about content.
Correct.
Content generation. What are your thoughts around scaling of that actual content creation itself, especially when that requires a particularly unique skill set, animation, etc.?
Yeah, and I sort of touched on it lightly with the no-code, low-code solutions, and I think that's the way we're going to start to move into that space. I mean, Meta showed some of the stuff with the say it, see it type of platforms that they were showing in Horizon. So the ability to bring in assets and do things, but then also have really easy node-based editing type tools that teachers and educators and learning designers can actually develop. That's where I think the opportunity lies. It's not going to sit in the hands of animators and developers for us to be able to deliver this effectively. It's going to have to move into that no-code, low-code solutions, and there's some amazing platforms that are doing the work in that space, and I'm really looking forward to diving into as many of those as possible and seeing where we can get to.
I have one. You're working? Perfect. Regarding the example that you showed that you said took about 15 minutes to
Yes.
build, stemming off the content question.
Yes.
I heard your voice in
Yes.
the voice over there,
Sure.
but for the rest of the content, how'd you go about sourcing that or creating it?
Yeah, so Tailspin's it's a node-based editor basically. So you're able to use a natural language generation voice platform to create the voices. They're able to use a node-based editor to do conversational piece. That was very simple. Obviously, a two-part conversation, but they can do really sophisticated stuff. So we've been rolling out Tailspin Pilot internally for a couple of months, and we're excited to see where that stuff goes. But then there's also that opportunity with hard skills as well to potentially move into that space.
Can you talk a little bit about how you use the analytics that you pull from the programs to kind of tune the educational kind of objectives, and also, like aside from just pass-fail, are there other kind of metrics you can use to determine like that's really dangerous or this person's being really safe generally? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, we've found that we've had some pretty sophisticated analytics platforms like Cognitive in our platforms. Lots of data doesn't necessarily mean lots of good data. So that's been a really interesting thing. We were tracking everything and thinking, oh, this is great, we've got so much data, we'll be able to tell everything. But you've got to, if you can work with smart analytics people that understand models, asking really pointed questions at the beginning to understand what you're trying to measure, what you're trying to achieve. So the working at heights, we're trying to change behaviour. So what we did is we actually had them start climbing ladders straight after they get into VR, but then we had another group that just did online learning and went up, so we could see the effect actually coming through. So we could see in the analytics if they were mucking around in the VR and not taking it seriously, so those students were flagged already as an immediate threat of doing something incorrect. And the pass-fail stuff was really interesting as well, because that was them understanding the process and the concepts. So we were able to flag people, but everything is based on moving towards a practical scenario anyway. So if we can then take it to that practical measurement, that gives you the feedback on if it's actually working.
Thank you. I also have a question about that part where there was conversation going between the user and the 3D person.
Sure.
So the response of the user, was it analyzed just as a voice recognizer or the actual response?
Yeah, so it tracks voice. It tracks what you say. So it'll give you keywords and identify keywords, and it'll give you a pass-fail on whether or not you're actually using the correct words in the response. We can also have prompts or no prompts. So if you're doing an assessment, they don't get a prompt, so they actually have to remember what the response should be. So they might go through a training scenario to start with and get a prompt, but then they can go through an assessment and move forward and be able to. The AI can be tweaked as well, so we can with loading based on particular keywords that we want people to say, if they want to use someone's name, for example, etc. So it's really quite sophisticated.
And the response of the person then also depends on the response of the user, like there are multiple possible scenarios where the conversation is going.
Correct. Yeah. So it branches out based on your response. So incorrect, correct response, you'll get different feedback.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Can you speak about the optimal length of a lesson in VR and how you structure kind of the classroom?
Sure, yeah, no, it's a really interesting question. And it does depend on the type of training. We tend to find anything above half an hour starts to get a bit taxing. All of the scenarios we build have the option to jump out and jump back in again, and the profile retains where you've left, especially for things like nursing, where nurses may only have 5 minutes, so they can jump in and do one chapter. So we've broken them down into small chapters of about 3 to 5 minutes usually, so they're able to jump in and out of things. Our working at heights is about 45 minutes. The blood gas analysis is about an hour, but it's broken into those smaller pieces. So we tend to find that sometimes people just want to plough through and get it done. If they're keen for that, that's fine, but others might find it a little bit taxing, so it allows them to jump in and out. In regards to how we actually structure them, it's an early process. As part of the Meta project, we've got 1,000 headsets that we're rolling out across the organisation, so it's been trying to understand what a classroom fit-out looks like. Are we doing things remote? Are we doing things in classroom? So there's a lot of fundamentals and a lot of areas we're starting to explore to get that done.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more.
Hi. When you were building these scenarios, was there something in particular, especially when you were doing the user testing, that lended itself best to putting yourself in the shoes of this operator? Because obviously it's a lot more than just, a drop-down menu where you click the right response. How did you get the user invested in the situation?
Yeah, with the working at heights, there was online training previously, so they understood some of the contextual relevance, and that's to the narrative piece is definitely something that we're trying to drive for, especially with younger students who may not necessarily have that contextual relevancy. With the blood gas analysis, they're trying to get certified, so they've got that driver. So they're just trying to achieve something and be certified so they can continue their medical practice. So that's really important for them. So that allows them to have that motivation. But yeah, for younger, we want to try and have that narrative going through, and that's where the conversational pieces or online content that supports that. And any of the online content that we develop, we bring in 3D elements from the VR experiences, so it's got that continuation across the entire curriculum. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.